The visibility was 2 months of payroll, 2 months of rent. I think resilience is number one. You'll probably have a lot of regret when you see others doing something probably not half as well as you could have. If we never lived to see 2005, then it was all in vain. For 2 years there was darkness. Then things slowly opened up.
Hello everyone. So here we are today with the next episode of the Founders Ledger. And today our guest is very special. We know founders and entrepreneurs who build companies. But here we have somebody today who's built an entire industry. And that happens when you are in the game for 25 years. So we have Deep Kalra here with us, who initiated and built MakeMyTrip and continues to do that. Thank you for being here with us. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, Rohit, entirely my pleasure. Thank you for doing this with Ty as a very important part of my heart. So I'm so excited to do this.
Wonderful. So let's get started, Deep, that we talk about this 25 years journey of yours. When you started way back in 2000, did you ever think that this will go all the way to 2025, 2026 now? We are chatting with each other?
No, the honest answer is no. I don't think I was a 30-year-old and all I was obsessed with doing was, taking advantage of the internet, which was happening all around us. Mm-hmm. I really felt it was something which is going to change everything we do, not just communicate, but even transact, research, various things. And I think I just want to take advantage of that and build a business on that. I did try to do it as part of a big company where I was working with G Capital, and that was because G Capital made its money from other stuff. Yeah. This was really a weekend project. So I figured before the term startup was, I think, even either coined or popular, I figured you've got to be all in to make anything new happen. And I guess that is what a startup is. But did I think we'd be, at this scale, size, or we'll even exist after 25 years? No, I'd be lying if I said I did. I think one takes it few years at a time. I said, give it a good shot, build something, and then you just keep on renewing your focus and I think horizons change. Yeah. And that's what it was. I mean, probably the same for you with client associates. I've known that a long time, so that's a great story too.
Yeah, of course. So I think that's true for all the founders, all the entrepreneurs. You start with an idea and, your enterprise, your own venture is like a trek. Yeah. And with every summit, every scale, you keep on, your vision keeps on expanding. Let's go to that height.
It's funny you say that, by the way. That is my favorite metaphor. Oh. So whenever I'm speaking to youngsters, colleges, or early stage, and I tell them, I actually say, listen, this is not a race. Your career is also not a race.
That's right.
So your career is also, my favorite metaphor is, it's a leisurely trek where you just have to enjoy every step of it. And like you said, the horizon also broadens it.
Yeah, no, excellent. But as founders, as entrepreneurs, we always start with an idea, and you gave a very interesting term to it, that it was a weekend project. Very interesting name, which got converted into an industry-leading corporation.
No, mine wasn't a weekend project. What I was trying to do at G Capital through internet, that became the weekend project. And I said, this won't work that way. It has to be all in. Yeah.
So you would have, in your initial days, this was an idea, which you wanted to test and you wanted to start. Yeah. So when did that shift happen? When you think that this can become a real business from an idea, this is a business which can run for decades. Did that shift happen?
Yeah. It moved pretty fast. I think even in the pre-launch phase. So I started MakeMyTrip actually on 1st April, All Fool's Day of 2000.
Okay.
But for the last, I would say about 6 months, the idea probably came 6 months ago, कि कुछ अपना करना है इस पे, या इस पे कुछ बन सकता है interesting सा. One can make a business in the kind of businesses which were being done on the phone. That was my very simple thesis.
Yeah.
What are we doing on the phone? Online stockbroking, travel and stockbroking were being done. These could move online first. We didn't have rich media. Yeah. You and I are same vintage, more or less. So downloading something itself was a task. Staying connected was a task.
Absolutely.
So that infamous, that sound sometimes still comes in my head of that modem 128 kbps and bips and beeps going on. So I think one had to think of a lightweight kind of model. So last 3 months became pretty frenetic activity. And once one started, I think I was very clear that, listen, we have to make a business out of this. And, it's not just now an idea. It's not something, I had quit with nothing else. And I'd quit G Capital. I was a vice president there. So the opportunity cost was high. Even otherwise, you look at your peers, you look at everyone else, they're doing well, they're like this thing. You have a natural pressure. I mean, I would be wrong if I said, there was just no pressure. One was just taking it one day at a time. No, I was very clear. I want to build a business on this from day one.
Oh, excellent. So now, see, you started with an idea, you tested the market was there. Now the revenue starts flowing in, customers start coming in. So at that stage, what were you thinking? You were focusing more to build the top line or to also become profitable at some point in time?
Yeah, so early days, I think you look for validation of concept. So, you can call it product market fit, and you look at validation of concept, because the first thing is, will people even like your service? Okay. You can put out ads, you can attract them, you can buy keywords, etc. But are people willing to risk, let's say, moving from that traditional way of working? So that was the fundamental shift. The only way people bought air tickets, and we started with air tickets. We had hotels, but no one was booking hotels at that time online. Will people move from that traditional way? What was the traditional way? Call up your travel agent. Some people would even call up the airline office. But by and large, call up your travel agent. And some people would actually go to travel agent. This is, 25 years ago. And the travel agent would do all the work for you. You would say, मेरे को दिल्ली से बॉम्बे जाना है, इस टाइम पे जाना है, इतने पैसे. He would give you 2-3 options all on the phone. And you'd say, हाँ, थोड़ा कम कर दो, ये वो, and all usual. There were no e-tickets either. So a physical ticket, that booklet would be sent, with the self-carbon pages.
Those days,
I have one up on my pin-up board. It's probably the only ticket I physically issued. And they would actually send you that ticket. So a runner boy would come and then you would cut a check. So it was very primordial. I mean, really, I think, archaic in a sense and so inefficient, but you didn't have the tools to make it efficient.
That's
so
right.
the first thing was just to see people will get traction. The business model was there because actually it was the same travel agency model online. There was no difference. You are in IATA, you get fares from airlines and you sell them, you get a markup. Earlier the markups used to be more, now they're smaller, etc. So I think the big one was, will people trust the internet as a medium? Will they drop their credit card online? And I can tell you, in the beginning, it was a spectacular failure. So in India, no one was ready to do that. Everyone used us to get the best price, to fax that price, because again, they won't email it. They would take a printout, they'd fax it to their travel agent to prove to him or her, this is what I'm getting, match it. Luckily for us, from the beginning, I had a kind of a 3-pronged segmentation. Like the customer, we wanted to address customers coming to India. These were NRIs, mainly from the US. There were 3 million NRIs then in the US. Going from India overseas and traveling within India. So to, from and within. So within was failing, from was failing, but luckily to India, our NRI brethren were buying because they were already used to this medium. Because they transacted on the web since maybe 95, 97, Amazon, etc. was there, Expedia was there, Travelocity was there, and there was a lot of protection on credit card. So, we had gone and got our Better Business Bureau accreditation. So if something went wrong, people would refute charges. In the US, it happens all the time, and all the laws are very consumer friendly there. So I think that helped us get validation. People are ready to buy online, but not in India. So I guess one of the smartest decisions we made, within 3 months of launch, the website was up and running on October 7, 2000. On 31st December, we stopped all marketing in India.
Okay.
So we're always looking at the market signals. Hey, the conversion rates are pathetic in India, and focused only US, India. And for the next 4 to 5 years, that's all that kept our fires burning. So smaller market, but inherently more profitable market.
That's right.
And then, as luck would have it, in 2001, our investor pulled out totally. I had got early stage funding, $2 million from eVentures, but they were going through their own thing. Their LPs wanted to pull out of all .coms. So from 2001 to 2005, it was entirely management held, the company. Okay. We bought back. We did a very interesting distress buyout. Some angels helped us. Some of the, actually 2 partners from eVentures only were, big believers in what we were doing. Until 2005, we were entirely self-funded. We just got a couple of angel this thing. And in fact, I never wanted to take VC money again. I had sworn I'll never take it because of the average experience I'd had. But then in 2005, the India was really opening up. Low-cost carriers had started. Indian Railways, IRCTC got people comfortable buying online. So then I said, okay, our original, kind of thesis is now playing out. So we'll need money because they wanted to build a brand out here.
Yeah. So I think you told us a very interesting stuff, which is, we talk about these days that this current generation of entrepreneurs talk about this pivoting. So I think you pivoted pretty much early in the first 6 months of your journey of founding MMT when you realized that India, the market is not there. From US to India is what you need to focus on. And that's what got into.
Yeah, I like the word pivot, but I actually think it's just a smart word or it's a buzzword for a smart but tough business decision.
Yes.
That's what it is, right?
It's adaptability at the end of the day.
Yeah, at the end of the day, adaptability, also course correction in a big way.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not listening to the market, and I've always been kind of, I think, creature of numbers. So you do believe in that. You look at your numbers, you look at your conversions, you look at what's happening, and it tells you the story. And then you talk to customers, you're close to customers, you realize, listen, you can keep pouring more and more money. And keep in mind, these weren't the days where you ever discounted below your cost. So that disease had not entered the market. That came much later.
Yeah.
Or maybe it started in China, then came to India. There was a lot of capital. When you have no capital, you have to make money on every transaction, even if it is, 1 rupee.
Yeah.
But you do 1 million transactions and you make a rupee on each.
That's right.
So I think the economics were clear, and also we're all, I think, trained with basic, that's our business sense. We both started our career in banking, so I don't think we can forget that.
Yeah.
So that somewhere was at the back of the mind, कि पैसे तो बनाने ही पड़ेंगे.
My favorite example for that is, the ATM can give you money only if it is cash.
Yeah, true.
So business can only give you money if it is profitable.
Correct.
But we go back deeper, long way. And I remember once you telling me a phase in the initial phase when it was really tough, and you had and you were not even sure, well, this will continue. So just tell us, that could be very valuable for the viewers.
2001 to 2005 were definitely the toughest years. 1 year in the beginning was probably a dream start, and then the management buyout, distress buyout happened. Next 4 years were very hard, out of which I'd say 2 years, 2001 to 2003, were trial by fire. I think about them, I still get a little tingle. Now I look back and say that was the best of times. Because only when you're bootstrapped and you have very, very, very little money, like for most of that period, the visibility was 2 months of payroll, 2 months of rent. I don't think it went ever less than 2 months, but it was never went much more than 2 months. So you're really teetering on that, investing whatever you can. Then you cut whatever can be cut. So you start with obviously any frivolous costs. So the first thing we did was, fixed costs like rental. So we moved in, we were in Okhla phase 1, which is the non-sexy Okhla, we moved into the mezzanine of that office. And it was a very low ceiling. I think it was 8 feet. So you could touch it comfortably, raising your hand. And it was a long, narrow one. So we would all sit there and we would work nights because there was US-India traffic. And we also shrunk from, I think we lost about 40% people over that weekend because I'd actually made it clear to everyone. We were a team of 42, we shrunk to about 24. Made it clear to everyone that, listen, this weekend we are not working. We would work, by the way, those days, 6.5 days. So only Saturday was half day off. So when the woke generation says, work-life balance, I always laugh. I said, there's no work-life balance in a startup anyway. But that's another topic. So I think at that point of time, it was cut back on payroll. So a lot of people left. I said, for seniors, you have to take cuts. And the cut in salary, whatever you can take, but minimum 25%. And, the guys who became co-founders took big cuts in salaries. And I was able to take 18 months, go without a salary because there was nothing to draw from MakeMyTrip. The same point of time, we did a build, operate, transfer to pay some bills with the e-bookers because e-bookers was a UK platform for online travel. They liked what we were doing. They said, we want to buy you guys out. We said, we're not for sale, but what do you want? So they actually wanted a back office. So we'll build you a back office. So shifted people to do that. So did a lot of creative structuring to stay alive. And every month gave a little bit hope that we are on the right track. And I think for juniors also, there were no cuts in salary, but there were no raises. So there was a real mission mode going on there, where everyone was like, okay, this is it. And to sustain that, I think for a long period becomes hard. So clearly after a while, I broke it down instead of every day to look, wonder, should we do this, should we not? I remember telling, okay, you were Sachin, listen, we will now review this every month. And for 1 month, if we are in, we are in.
Yeah.
So that really helped break it down. And then I think after about a year, we could see things are getting slightly better and slightly better. Then we got 2 slugs of angel capital, one from a customer.
Okay.
A US India customer who only bought from us business class or first class called one of my agents and said, I want to come and meet Deep. And he gave us $150,000, which was a lot of money then.
That time. Yeah.
And he just liked what we were doing, and it worked out very well for him. And the second was actually a very interesting gentleman. He runs actually very high-end cruises on the Brahmaputra and Ganga, and also does birding, Mr. Raj Singh. So he was doing traditional high-end travel in the UK. Mm-hmm. So really bringing trips from the UK to India to show them the best of India. So as offline as could be, but he saw that online is happening overseas. So he told his CA, who I happen to know, that find me someone here who's doing online. And Mr. Vinod Dua introduced us, and next check came from him. Mm-hmm. So 2 angels came along, but yeah, for 2 years there was darkness. Then things slowly opened up.
Yeah, so I think it's such an incredible story which you just shared with us, because this is a brilliant case study of survival, and survival based on resilience and adaptability. Because as they say, only those are the ones who win the war, are the ones who survive the day, don't take the bullet. It's no point being bravado on the border. You have to win the war, you have to be in the war. So I think you've survived and you achieved that goal.
But actually, both the words you use, sorry Rohit to interrupt, are just both are my favorite qualities, I think, in entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think resilience is number one.
Yeah.
And it's very underrated. People
Absolutely.
talk about, innovativeness, and people talk about brilliance. All are important. Everything's important. But resilience is the most important, to be able to take the blows and live another day. So only when you live another day, and times change, things change.
Yeah.
And in 2005, we saw a totally different India ready to buy online. 2005 to 2010, we grew like some 25x, and then we IPO'd in 2010. But if we never lived to see 2005, then it was all in vain. And I often say, if you pack up too early, you'll probably have a lot of regret when you see others doing something probably not half as well as you could have. And you'll be very, very miserable. So I'm so glad that one was able to do it, because the team gave a lot of support. So I started alone as a single founder, but very quickly I met these, couple of folks who were so important and took sacrifices that I don't think the company would be where it is today without their contributions. And today, Rajesh runs the company today. Mm-hmm. And I don't think for the last, we would be able to scale up the way we have without him. Mm-hmm. And last 3 years, I've happily taken a back seat as non-exec chairman. And I wanted to, because, he's just doing a great job running it. So I think you have to figure that out. But it helps. If I was to redo everything, I would go with one more partner. And adaptability is the other one. I think that's so important. Yeah. Pivots, adaptations, again, because nothing will go according to business plan. This is like maybe a test match on a turning track.
Absolutely.
You cannot predict when it'll break, what will change, how it'll change. You just have to adapt, and you have to be ready to do it on the fly.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it much more when we'll come and talk about the COVID era. But before that, now you managed to survive in this tough phase, and you mentioned your IPO happened in 2010. I think that happened because you survived this phase.
Sure,
you had
absolutely.
this phase. But what took you out of it? You were kind of, metrics you were watching was, essentially the cost, you were detail oriented. But what took you out of it?
So one, we had to be profitable. If you don't have any money, there's no other way, right? You have to break even this thing. I think the whole approach was, now that we're getting, so in 2005, we got Safe Partners, which is now called Elevation. Mm-hmm. They came in and they put 9 million in the business, and they bought out all the angels, etc., etc. But 9 million fresh. Mm-hmm. 9 million 2005 was also a lot of money. That's probably 100 million today or whatever. So I think the approach was always, we are going to use this money to do what we are doing better. Definitely to market, to put more, invest more in tech, but not ever like just throw the money in and then say, dekha jayega. So I think we were very clear on that. Scale karna hai, but unit economics cannot go to hell.
That's right.
They might get stressed for a bit. They might move in the other direction because you're acquiring new customers. But for me, the key metric is always, and again, it's the most understated hero, is repeat and unaided repeat. And, which is great to get your first time user. You can incentivize, you can give, all kinds of, coupons, etc. Get your first time user to induce trial. But the same person should come back to you, not because of a coupon, should come back to you not because of an inducement, should come back to you because he or she had a good experience.
Good experience, yeah.
So unaided recall, unaided repeat, for me is the most important metric in B2C business. Probably B2B too, but in B2B, I think you need to be more focused around, what all you can get out of them because the repeat cycle. But in B2C, that's the most. So we are very focused on that. Okay, we've grown the pie, but are people actually coming back? So we're always measuring these 4 or 5 key metrics, and that even till date, I think are the most important.
So now, very interesting, I think the next phase of MakeMyTrip's journey, now you've graduated to a growth phase, and clearly you've got institutional investors, very good quality investors, still regarded very well, safe partners, elevation now. And actually they will, one fine day, they would want an exit. And you are on your way to IPO. So this is a growth phase. So in this phase, what you were focusing more on, should I get market share or should I continue to remain profitable? Or you think that both can be achieved together?
Yeah, it's a great point. And actually we did 3 subsequent rounds. So 2005, 2006, 2007, 8. Yeah, we had Series A was safe. Series B was safe, kept kind of maintaining their position, was Helion and Sierra. They split the round. And then we got Tiger. So we had really great investors all through. Their nominees on the board really helped us become a very good board. I always had independents on the board. Sanjeev Bikhchandani was on the board. A gentleman who's been regarded as online travel guru, Philip Wolf, he's sadly no more, went too early, but he was on our board, and Frederic Lalonde, so French-Canadian. So we had a really good board. We would have very good discussions and decisions and debates there. And I think this was one of the key things, not at the board level, but at the company level, we were always very clear. So, Rajesh is a CA by training. He was CFO then. So he was very focused. We can do what we want, but we have to be very clear that, listen, this is hitting the and whereas on the other side, you'd get Sachin with his marketing genius saying, we want to grow this. And Keyur was, probably the most brilliant travel mind I've ever worked with. So we had a really good combination. I think that really helped us take these decisions within the guardrails of stretching profitability. I'm not saying, but again, not profitability be damned ever. That could never happen till well post IPO, when in the market crazy stuff was going on. Naspers was funding Go Ibibo, and they were forcing in the hotels market, and they were selling below cost. We'd never heard of that. Like that as a concept was very new to India.
Yeah.
It started in China, and then because I think largely these were, big investors who had made tons of money in China. They were bringing that playbook here. So whether it was Alibaba with Alipay or it was Tencent, that playbook had worked for them. That invest a lot, acquire customers, and eventually you'll make money out of them. But the carnage that you cause along the line, but as they say, all is fair in love and war, and this was war.
Yeah.
So that's a different time. Then you have to, I think, apply different rules and different weaponry and different arsenal to take that on. For that, you need a cash pile.
That's right.
Because there you could be the best company in the world with the best product. But if someone's selling the same product cheaper, because remember, we are an intermediary, we are selling someone else's product. Yeah. It's like client associates. If you're selling, the same mutual fund to someone else, but somehow you're managing to sell it cheaper.
That's right.
Hard to imagine. But then everyone say, yeah, listen, I want to buy, HDFC, I'll buy it through them.
That's right.
So that's what was happening later. But till 2010, that was sanity. Till 2012 also, there were other issues. New airlines coming up, going out of business, shaking up the market. So Kingfisher collapse happened first, Jet Airways happened, and all that kind of chaos was happening. And the hotel market to open up, I must say, was taking the longest time. Because in the hotel market, there were so many variables. Like, unlike in a flight. So in a flight, people typically, you knew the airline, you knew what it stood for. Low cost, full service. Timing, cost, pretty much was all you cared. So it was actually 2 to 3 dimensional. So very easy to compare and take the call. You don't need to see it. In a hotel, an unbranded hotel or not a big chain, the moment you said, okay, listen, I want to go to Goa, I want to stay on so-and-so beach and 3-star hotel, you didn't know what to expect. So you didn't even know if the pictures were real. You didn't know if the reviews can be trusted. There were so many variables. Is it good for kids? Is it good for adults? What is the view from outside? What is the view from inside? They were like food, vegetarian food. So there people were not ready to trust the internet so easily. So there the inducements became more about, okay, can we give a discount better than the market? Because people were ready to actually show up at places in leisure travel and actually go and check hotel and negotiate across the counter.
Really?
That still happens in India. It happens in India.
Wow.
So it's a very tough market to crack, but that eventually opened up.
Yeah. But you cracked it. So you told us that the metrics which you used to track during your survival phase was the cost largely. But when you came into the growth phase, so what were the metrics you were watching then? Were they the same or they were watching some other metrics also?
Okay, so I think not just cost, Rohit. I think cost of customer acquisition is a very important one.
Yeah.
But for me, absolute costs are important, but per unit becomes the key. So unit economics.
Yeah.
How much are you making from that customer? And how often is that customer repeating or coming back? So the whole life cycle of the customer. And today, what else is the customer buying from you? So share of wallet.
Okay.
So these metrics become important. Obviously, fixed costs are fixed, but the whole idea which we learned, the 101 in the toughest way of fixed costs and variable costs is during COVID, where you realize that, listen, you have to variabilize all your costs, and we can talk about it. In the growth phase, I think you take a little bit more leeway where you say, I'm ready to spend a bit more to acquire customer because I want to grow the base. I also want to go beyond the typical user base of the internet. The internet base was growing definitely. I want to go beyond the urban and urbane. I want to go beyond SEC1. I want to now get into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. I want to get into non-English speaking markets. So maybe I have to go offline and advertise. For me, it was very hard to actually, for the first time, say, listen, we're going to use celebrities to advertise. And I didn't want to do it ever, but we had to do it because we wanted to enlarge the base. But then you take a little longer frame to get back to those economics. You say, okay, this is my investment phase. I have the capital, I've raised money. For the next 6 months, I'm ready to invest, but then I will harvest. So it has to, if you take a year, a time frame, you'll probably still end up in the same place. But if you look at it quarter by quarter, the first 2 quarters won't smell like roses. They'll look bad. You can do it in the private phase. In the public phase, it becomes very difficult because you report quarter by quarter.
That's right.
So while people say, oh, we'll always do the long-term decision, not true. Ask anyone who runs a listed company. You have to face the music every quarter. So there are many quarters we've been rewarded, sometimes unfairly, and there are many quarters we've been, I'd say admonished or punished, and sometimes unfairly. So like the last quarter, I think we've been, got too loud, too hard a rap than because the business is actually going great. But there's a foreign exchange thing happening. Converted to US, we can't, it's beyond our control, but the investor sitting in the US and we are listed in the US is saying, this is now not that attractive because the dollar has become so strong against the rupee.
So that brings me to the next very interesting phase of your journey. I'll call it phase 3. First was survival, second was growth, and then this is post-listing, post-2010. When you become a public market listed company, so how did that transition you as an entrepreneur felt transition? What are the thoughts, feeling came to you at that? Did you feel different that point in time?
Yeah, firstly, I think to IPO is a huge decision for any entrepreneur in any business. So I tell all entrepreneurs, be very clear that you want to IPO. While it could be some liquidity, but it's actually a new beginning. So this is not a checkout. A checkout is when you do a trade sale. You'll do your earn out, you'll do whatever, you sell the business.
So true.
Yeah, so if you want to check out, do not IPO. And I was very clear, and luckily, my colleagues were very clear that, we want to really build this for the long term. And it was early days, so let's IPO and let's actually, build a brand for the long term, build a company for the long term. And rather than doing, something else, meaning you get one opportunity, we've done the toughest part of it. So we were all very clear, okay, IPO karna hai, and it's obviously time has said it was a great decision. It unlocks the maximum value. But then your responsibility is very, very different. One is you're measured by the quarter. B, this is public money. So in private money, I had 4 investors. Or even angels, I had 2 angels before that. They had anyway got, bought out by one of the investors, made very good return. But I had 4 investors, all of whom were in the business of venture investing. So they knew the risk, they knew everything else. No one was going to be on the road tomorrow. The moment you get retail investors, there's a lot of onus.
Yeah.
Because these are people who are believing your story, who don't know you necessarily, but they're reading some reports, they've heard something and they're investing. And for them, you want to make sure that they keep on kind of doing well. The biggest onus, of course, is your people who are believing in you in the tough times. That's we've already covered that. So I think during this phase, your decision making has to be even more conservative in a sense.
Okay.
You can't take very massive punts, which will take very long to play out. You can take smaller risks within the business. You can keep experimenting, but what you put out there and all has to be very measured. You'll take some punts, but again, those are very measured ones. So I think that changes.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I think you've given us that very valuable insight that both the scale and complexity of stakeholder management actually shifts the moment you shift from a private company to a public market company, because the landscape is totally different, so and you did that transition very successfully. And I think this could be a very valuable and interesting insight for a lot of younger generation founders who are actually looking at listing as if that's the end game. Actually, it's not the end game, and you said it so very rightly. That's a beginning of a very long game.
Yeah.
And one example, Deep, which comes to my mind is Dhirubhai Ambani, because when he was kind of starting his group, there was no private capital. Forget access to private capital. There was no private capital in the country.
Yeah.
So the only way he could access capital was public money. And when he did that, that was the beginning. And I think that's what made Reliance what.
Absolutely. And they were so focused on making sure investors make returns.
Yeah. So now you are a public market company. So are the metrics which you were not tracking in this next 10 years were different than what you were tracking in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I was telling someone the other day, we were speaking to the team after the call. We always do a call, a meeting with the top 150, 200 people in the company, probably more actually, where we just share with them. They have questions around it. I said, we've been reporting now for 62 quarters.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy if you think about 15 and a half years, 62 quarters. So you develop a lot of, I think, firstly, two people gave me this very good advice. When you go public, I got this from the head of Tiger Capital, who had started it, the original founder at a Tiger conference. And then I also got it in passing I had done a group breakfast with Jeff Bezos, and he had said the same thing. So when you go public, you have to develop a bit of a thick skin.
Thick skin, yeah.
Actually, one of them said it more colorfully than said you have to have the hide of a rhinoceros. So I think that is, you don't have to take this to personally, because there'll be ups and downs.
Yeah.
I try not to look at the stock price every day. Even in the choppy times, sure, I do have the app, it'll come, but I try not to. And the reason is very simple, it's very distracting. It is not telling you the health of the business. Mm-hmm. It is telling you how investors are viewing your business with some kind of lag effect.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think you are not getting, there's so many other factors. The macro factor, I told you one is foreign exchange. Tomorrow there's a war, something going on in, US has threatened Iran. That's playing a role in what we are doing. Everything else, you can't do much about that. You have to put head down and you have to execute. And you have to do the best you can. The rest will play out. Sometimes you'll get over-rewarded. Sometimes you'll get over-punished. So I think that is one thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is, and this is what I tell all my colleagues, look at the price only. It matters. I said it's a bit of a vanity metric. It matters only if you're looking to sell stock personally or to raise money as a company or to buy stock personally. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So, but people get very affected and impacted by it, etc. Net worth and this and that and whatever. So I said, listen, there I think age and experience helps. So you got to take a little calmer look, take a deep breath and say, eventually, how are you doing over a longer term period? I think that's the key thing. And if you're moving in the right direction, it'll always get the just rewards. Our project name for our IPO project was, and I had given it, was Project Karma. And I think that's life. Basically, you focus on what you're doing, do a great job of it, and don't be too focused on the fruits of it. The fruits will come. They might come a little later. They might come before. Another reason to hang in there. Because it might be, it'll never be gratification denied. It'll always be gratification delayed or early. But if you're not there, you're not there. So
just focus on what you're supposed to do
Yeah, and do it really well.
And
I
do
think,
it really well.
focus on building a great product, a great service 24/7, consistently take care of your customers, do the right thing, make your product best in the world. Today, it's not good enough to be best in India. The money will come. The moment you start focusing on making a lot of money, you probably won't get it.
Okay, so now Deep, it's been flowing very well. So it's been 20 years now, 10 years as a public company. And now
15
something
and a half years of a public company.
till 2020. Till 2020. And that's where I'm going to talk about
right,
COVID,
right,
which
of
none of us could see coming. And then COVID happens. Of course, it affects the entire humanity, the entire planet. But in terms of businesses, one industry which gets affected the most is yours. We are practically the very next day, it comes to an end. So tell us that how did you survive in that phase?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rohit. This was a crisis like one had never, seen. One had never fathomed or imagined.
Yeah.
Even not a fantasy, but even in a sci-fi nightmare, this would not be there. So, but it happened, and that's the reality, and it hit everyone. So we reported a quarter that we were down 96.5% in revenues.
Wow.
So literally like three. And one investor asked on the call, he says, where did you get the 3.5% from? And I said, those are emergency stays. Hotels became wards and things like that, and emergency travel. So it was crazy, knocked the wind out completely. We were all locked up. This was our national lockdown quarter. And the toughest challenge this time it wasn't an existentialism crisis. At least unless it went on and on, because we had, when it started on our balance sheet, about 250 million or 225 million.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of money. We were doing very well. But if it went on forever, who knows? Revenue dried up. Then it started limping back between the waves, etc., etc. But, cautious travel was happening now. People were also like saying, yaar, homestay, remote, kahin jaake rahenge. And it wasn't the corporate travel completely dried up. Everything came onto the screen, and Zoom became the buzzword, and we got Zoom fatigue, and everything was going on like that. So we were hiring people and doing their immersion and induction through Zoom. So there was no culture being built, and it was very hard to get people back to work, especially in Bangalore. The real challenge for us at that point of time was to keep motivation going and to stem the rot. So a lot of people who have fungible skills. So in our business, yes, there are some people who are travel people, who are doing your trip planning, who understand the back end of flights, of hotels, etc. But bulk of our people are not travel people. We are a technology company that happens to be in travel.
Okay.
So bulk of our people are technology, product, marketing, online marketing, HR, finance, and these skills are entirely fungible. And it's human nature. If you're saying nothing's happening in travel and the whole future is looking so bleak, kahin aur chalte hain. And techies move very fast. So techies are always saying, and why not I don't think it's mercenary alone. Good techies are hard-coded with one thing. They want to be at the cutting edge and the bleeding edge of technology. They're always on Reddit and other threads, and they're saying, oh wow, now this, and now I should work on AI, I should work on this so that I'm very relevant. It's a restless mind, which is fine. So they were leaving. And the big risk was that we would lose a lot of our best people like this. So I think after a while, it took us good 3 odd months. We said, listen, the thing to do is to really engage them. We're keeping them, we're paying them. We took out our whole pipeline of backed up projects. So the entire Dhobi list came out, and we said, there's always so many projects for us. It's always like, oh wow, this is a great idea, but guess what? Isko to 6 mahine baad attempt karenge. The tech company, uske baad 3 mahine aur lagenge. So we said, let's attack these with a vengeance, because there's no day-to-day fire going on, and let's actually focus on that. So that really helped engage a lot of our people. Prior to that, something fascinating happened. Actually, one of my techies had the brilliant idea of building a contact tracing app.
Okay.
And he shared it with me. He says, I can do this and we can do this. And I shared it with Amitabh Kant. And after a while, he came back and he said, Banao. And we started building it. And then 2-3 other companies were building it. And basically, we got selected. Kami Koti from Chennai, various people were on the panel. The chief scientific advisor, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, all of them were on the panel. They chose us. So we built what became Arogya Setu. So there were 25 of us only doing that for the first 3 months. And I was program manager all over again, reporting twice a day to PMO. And we built, that was a pro bono project, but it kept people very motivated. And we were doing something, it was our give back to the country. So I think that was also a very good way of keeping people motivated. That was a small group, but the rest, there was a lot of reflected pride and glory, because everyone had to use Arogya Setu. And we had built the entire code. Then after some time, we handed it to the government because things were coming back for us. And we didn't want to get into a paid assignment. It was totally a pro bono kind of thing. So I think keeping people busy and gainfully employed was really important. And those projects, the new ones also, are paying off now. So we built our entire ad tech platform during COVID. We built our new homestay platform during COVID. We built our fintech for travel, so Book My Forex, etc. The whole thing was augmented during COVID. So much of good work happened that time. So in a weird sort of way, I guess that was the silver lining of that cloud.
That's right.
Also, we learned how to variabilize cost. So we gave up a lot of the office space. We shrunk, but we were still paying a fair deal. But we realized let's variabilize wherever we can. And that has helped us as COVID cloud lifted. So our P&L was in much better shape. So now our costs were much better calibrated. So even things like hosting, you move away from fixed costs, you move to the cloud. It's a big cost for us. So that itself then became calibrated, everything with that. So I think it made us a tougher, harder company. There was a low point. I can't say everything was great. The lowest point was asking almost 10% of our workforce, especially those who worked in our travel stores, in physical outlets. No one was going. Wahan tala chabi lagi hui thi. So we had to let them go. We took care of them as much as possible. Even personally, Rajesh and I really helped them. And then we've tried to take back as many as we can. That was a very tough thing because it was no fault of theirs. But if we didn't do that, we were being unfair on other people. And for me, the most touching moment was that willingly, a lot of senior people took cuts in salary. And I haven't seen that in a big company, listed company, whatever. And I really felt great about our culture. And we actually gave it back much later. And no one expected it back. They said, no, that was a cut one time we did it. So I think over director level, people just voluntarily took 10 and 20% cuts. So it was a very warm feeling because I think people realized that, listen, we need to do this right now.
So much valuable insights, and I can clearly see that, your good old values and character of resilience and adaptability really playing on the front foot even this time. And I think the good old adage is that, save something for the rainy day. So I think what you told us is the takeaway is that you had capital of 200 million or 250 million on your books. And I think you had sufficient capital to make you last, which was possibly a rainy season and perhaps a rainy year, not a rainy day. And that probably saw you through, and of course, aided by your strengths of resilience and adaptability when you great insight about variability of cost and stuff like that. And of course, this is again a great case study that somebody who survives the war wins. So you were able to survive the COVID period, and when the markets came back, when the revenge travel came back, MakeMyTrip was the platform.
And I think our early day training, which was not by design, really helped because it gets into your DNA. So you also realize that, listen, you have to be calm in crisis. This too shall pass. You have to be a little like, if you get panicky, and if it was the first time we had seen a crisis, and that's why I worry for the new generation who've only seen good days. They haven't seen a 2008 kind of financial crisis, what all we've seen in our lifetime. So it's very hard the first time. Next time around, you just become a little, you're saying, okay, we've tackled it before, we've tackled worse before, we'll tackle this also.
And what would be your advice to a founder who's got, let us say, 6 months of runway? What decisions that founder should be taking over the next 3 months?
I will answer that. Before that, I want to give an advice to the wannabe entrepreneurs, which I always say is very important. You've got a job, you've got something else. Get into something new when you have the stamina for 4 to 5 years. I think it takes 4 to 5 years minimum to see green shoots, to see, are you a real business in the making? Is there something there? अगर आप आ रहे हो 1-2 साल के लिए के देख लेंगे, more likely than not, you will quit early. Nothing will happen. So have, I think, the mentality of a long distance runner when you come in, and then the magic starts happening. So that is your period to really sow the seeds. It is tapasya time, whatever, you get into it and say, listen, I'm building for the long run. So that's something I tell. But let's say you're in it and you have 6 months left. If you have a team, if you're 2 co-founders or more, I think one person should definitely, 6 months is alarm bells are ringing. I think that's the cushion capital you need, minimum, because in tough times you can't raise money in even a year. So one of you should be out raising capital. You don't want to get too close to it because 2 things happen then. Things become nervous. You start taking wrong short-term decisions. And investors who come in, of course, see your books, then squeeze you because they know that you are in a tough spot. You'll take anything. So you take desperate measure decisions. So never go less than 6 months. I mean, it's like in our fuel tank, when that reserve comes in, you say, okay, now you can. I think that you should start thinking actually at even 12 months and never dip below 6. So if you're only one founder, then you have to devote a large part of your time to that. It's a necessary evil. You have to do it. It's an evil because it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
It doesn't add to your business, but
That's
it's
right.
needed.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have gas, you don't have gas, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do that journey. So I think that would be my advice. Keep a good cushion of minimum 6, ideally 12 if you can, so that you can take the right decisions.
Yeah.
And we've seen COVID. We've seen markets crash. We've seen,
Absolutely.
so who do you know no one knows when the next, down cycle will come.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the one thing we've learned over the last decade is sharper cycles, choppier cycle. They'll also come out very quickly. The markets are showing the same thing. But volatility is something which I think is going to stay for a while, given the current kind of crop of leaders that we have around the world who are running it more like fiefdoms, their countries, and it's going to stay volatile.
And one last piece of advice I would want for the younger founders now, because I know it can come from you because you've lived those times, especially now the times have shifted when the access to capital and also the scale of capital is very different what it used to be your time. So what would be your advice to your founders now? Should they be going for the market share or should they be focused on unit economics?
Rohit, I think it depends on the scale of business where you are. So I think if you're in the early days, you have to first get some share. And if it's a function of scale of where are you on evolution cycle, what scale are you? And secondly, it's a function of how much cash you have. So you can go for market share growth only if you have the cash to invest in it, behind it. Or you have to then say, let me really, really fix unit economics and grow in a calibrated model. But let's say you've raised a lot of capital and you want to race ahead, you're number 3, and you're saying, I can get to number 1 because I have a better product and a better offering. See, fundamentally, founders can't be delusional. You have to know how good or bad your product is.
That's right, yeah.
If it is truly the best, then absolutely raise money and go whole hog, because eventually the better offering will work. And that's true for any business. Even in the commodity-like businesses, why is it that you guys have been around a couple of decades and many others haven't lasted? Why?
Yeah.
So you built a solid enterprise, good training, good people behind. There's a very calibrated growth versus fly-by-night kind of operators.
Yeah.
It's no different. The basics of business apply. I mean, people think the internet is some very mystical kind of beast. No, it's not.
Yeah.
The basics apply. The medium is obviously different. You have to adapt to it. And if ever product was important, it's important in B2C. So first, there is no compromise for making your product the best in class.
Yeah.
Once it is best in class, go all out to get more customers.
Yeah.
If it's not best in class, do not open your doors. So don't open your doors for business till you are ready. Customers will give you one shot.
Absolutely.
If they're not happy with what they see, they won't come back.
Yeah.
They've written you off.
Yeah.
It's true again for everything.
Absolutely.
So open your doors when you're fully ready. You can call it beta and then don't advertise.
Yeah.
Then you're just getting organic traffic.
Yeah.
The minute you are ready to advertise, it should be only when you're fully prepared.
Yeah. So basically, you see, the common definition of any business, whether it's somebody who's selling a tea on the roadside or Amazon or MakeMyTrip, is that it has to add value to its customer.
Exactly.
Only if that is happening, the customer will keep coming back to you. And you will be in business forever.
Absolutely. That's so well said.
Yeah. So
well said.
My concluding question is now to you, Deep, that after now very soon 26 years of MakeMyTrip, you've done many good things and because of which you're sitting here and we are having this conversation. But is there any one or few things which you would do differently if you were to start MakeMyTrip today?
For sure. For sure. We have 3,000 people plus. And I always thought we want to have a pure play. Today I'd still be in travel. I love travel. I think it would be an AI first kind of business. And therefore we're trying to build a lot more AI and probably have like the tiniest team possible. Like I'm a big fan of pure play companies. Like when WhatsApp sold, there were like 40 people, I think. And Jan Kumar built that business with 40 people, and what a phenomenal business. So I think I would definitely go for Puritan product, tech kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think our job is done even today. So what keeps me going today is till every customer is not a brand ambassador, our job is not done.
Yeah.
So we are we are still maybe 6 on 10. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. I would like to learn from you, which are the books that you're reading so that I can pick up some of those, because I know if you'll pick up something, it'll be good.
I think last time we met, you recommended one book and I read it about how prime ministers decide. Book reading is still going on, though I've become an Audible junkie. I've completed now 110 books on Audible. So I hear more than read. My wife insists that's not real reading, but I find that's the only way I really read, because I can do it while walking in a car, etc., etc. Also doing a lot of podcasts. So one of the recent books I think I really enjoyed was, I read Ray Dalio's The New World Order.
New World Order, yeah.
And I thought it was a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But I'm hooked to two podcasts. So one is something called Acquired. I think I told you about it, but I'd love to tell the viewers. Brilliant podcast, two young VCs, one company at a time, some companies 6 to 8 hours, including IPL, which was interesting for two Yanks Americans to talk about IPL, not because of the sport of cricket, but because of how valuable a franchise has become over 10 years. But their belief is every company has a story. And I don't think they're better storytellers about companies, and they do a lot of research.
Okay.
So even everyday companies, which you'll never even think of what is behind them, from a Coke, but a lot of tech also. So, Google and Microsoft and all. They really very well done. They try to pull in sometimes the founders for a bit also. They had a beautiful one with Charlie Munger.
Charlie Munger.
And it was brilliant. The other one, which is more historical, which is The Empire.
Yeah.
So it's William Dalrymple.
I also listened to that. I'm a big
and
fan
Anita
of William.
Anand.
Yeah.
Oh, it hooks you. And you can just keep, because they bring it alive.
That's right.
And the irony is that here's one Brit or one Scot who's an Indophile, lives here, and the other's a second generation Indian who lives in the UK. And they've done it across continents. And seamlessly done, such beautifully, I think they're also masters of their craft. And great research.
Yeah.
So I think I get quite hooked onto podcasts, and I try to do a bit a day. So I tell young founders, actually even career professionals, take out not even an hour a day, take out 30 minutes a day, either coming to work or going back or whatever. We all spend so much time on the road. And take a TED talk a day, or something you want to learn about. It's amazing how much you'll learn.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it can be your music, can be everything else, and can be reels and scrolling. But even 30 minutes a day is a lot. I mean, it's basically 175 hours in the year. So so much of learning that can be done.
Yeah, especially with the technology of the day has giving us access to so much of good quality content. So why miss on it?
It's fascinating. Yeah, I think one of my most used apps might be Spotify for all of this. Yeah.
No, that's great. Now let's talk a bit about sustainability. I know I've seen you getting involved and supporting platforms like I Am Gurgaon, but I know that you have gone much beyond that, and I would like to know, and our viewers would like to know more from you, that what are your thoughts on it and how you're doing it.
Yeah. I think the starting of I Am Gurgaon, where a few of us got involved early days to help the city we are in towards better civic infrastructure, and happened around the same time as MakeMyTrip Foundation. Though almost 20 years ago, we started asking our customers for a little bit of money every time you bought a ticket or booked a hotel, like even 5-10 rupees. And that went towards a fund which went towards planting trees. We worked with an NGO in Rajasthan called Seva Mandir, and we've now done more than 2 million trees with them. But then we said we should do more. And the more we thought about it, I think it's our responsibility as India's largest travel company to also ensure that India stays travel worthy. So I firmly believe the only downside of travel is one which is carbon footprint, right? And you can't help that unless you do a walking tour, or I heard someone saying a cycling tour, walking tour. You can do that. That's phenomenal. But everyone can't do that.
Yeah.
So how do you mitigate your carbon footprint? And how do you make sure that in India, we have such beautiful areas, but very fragile ecosystems, so we don't ruin them forever? And we've already done that to many hill stations. Like where you and I went growing up as a child, most of those places we don't want to go to. Because Mussoorie and Nainital and Shimla and Manali, all of these, we've just allowed over tourism, and we've not ensured that the infrastructure is built concomitant with the number of people it can take in. And all kinds of even horrible incidents happen. There are deaths that happen every time there is flooding, etc., etc. So let's try to see how we can contribute. So we look at areas which are very high tourism potential but underdeveloped, and we try to improve both infra there, as well as we look at even even people there. So we're doing work in Kashmir right now. We're helping clean up the Dal Lake with an NGO called Azmat-e Dal. And then going into how can we now make sure the waste management is complete. So we really think about it. We get the design made, because otherwise there's no point. You don't want to move the stuff from the lake and create a mountain. In Leh, you'll be shocked to learn, we send a lot of people to Ladakh every year. There is no waste management plant.
Really?
But the current chief secretary, I know, is very passionate about this, and he is very keen, and we are very keen to partner to do something for end-to-end waste management. Otherwise, all the waste of Ladakh has to come by truck to Srinagar, or doesn't move at all. So imagine what we are creating there. We've done water ATMs to try to help mitigate the spread of single-use plastic bottles in Andamans. And we are doing some stuff on the shore. There's the poorest part of Gujarat on the border. There are really marshlands there. So there's a wonderful organization called the Vikas Foundation. They're building a biofence there. And we are contributing towards that. So our now goal is to find the right NGO on the ground. We will partner, we'll give funds, whatever advice we can give. Wherever we've tried to do it ourselves, we're not the best at it. So we need very good people on the ground. And then we are happy to divert our CSR funds, customer monies, etc., so that these places are worth going to. And I think waste management becomes a key one, and getting rid of single-use plastic. And they're all linked. Waste Warriors in Uttarakhand, we are doing a lot of work with them. And then our team goes and does volunteering days with them and stuff like that. So very satisfying at one level. But like earlier, we would do things like plogging for a beach. But that we've realized a one-day effort, it feels good, but then how do you systemize it? Because otherwise the next day it's all back. So we're thinking harder around that, because otherwise it'll be very sad, where most people who have time and money will go overseas. They won't travel in our country, which will be such a shame.
No, such a deep thought, and comes from Deep Kalra. And so I think this is an example of a brand which is bringing value to not only customers but also to the society, doing good to the society. I think that's a sign of a very responsible business. Thank you for doing this, Deep, and congratulations for coming this far.
Thank you very much. And this, we all have to do our bit, and we're very excited about it. Thanks once again, Rohit. Great chatting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.